Oh, hi, Ben.
Hey, how you
Thank you.
doing?
Thank you for joining me today.
Sure.
I'm very happy to talk with you.
Yeah, you too.
Um, I must say that I only discovered your work very recently when a friend of mine shared an article about your current exhibition in London, Software for Less. And at the center of this exhibition is a new social media platform called Minus. So I'd like you to tell me about this exhibition and also the concept of Minus a little bit.
Sure, yeah. So the exhibition is a collection of new works, new commissioned works by Arbeit Gallery, of which Minus is one, but it also includes a number of additional works that have stretched back almost 10 years, but some of those works that go back that far have been rewritten multiple times or are ongoing projects. But they all are part of my efforts to examine the cultural, social, and political effects of software. Looking at how the design of a piece of software can have profound effects on those who use it, and also often for me, looking at how the choices that we made in terms of how that piece of software feels, looks, acts to the user, for the user, in some cases against the user, are really reflective of particular ideologies of those who make that software. And a primary ideology at the center of much of today's big tech platforms is what I call the desire for more, that the designs of these platforms are created as in order to animate in users a desire for more, a desire for more likes, a desire for more notifications or more friends or more followers. Um, and many of the design decisions around them are meant to keep us focused in producing for the platform. So that's that's been my focus for a long time. And the exhibition collects a lot of the works that have kind of been examining that phenomenon for a long time. And then Minus is the central new work in the show. And it's, as you said, it's a social media platform. It's what I call a finite social network that lets users have 100 posts for life. So it kind of takes the central principle at the center of a site like Facebook, which is stay here as long as possible, do as much as possible, post as much as you can, give us all the likes, never leave. And it turns that on its head and it says, here's a social network that is so comfortable with not getting everything from you that it actually at some point will stop letting you post.
I joined, as soon as I read about the concept, really, because it's one thing to say that social media is not neutral, software is not neutral, but it's actually another one to experience it. So that's the very exciting part of it. And I think for me, it was genius. I thought it was such an opportunity to experience something else. So I'm very happy about that. And one of the first thing you notice when you start exploring Minus is that you cannot follow anyone.
Correct.
Yeah. So what did you decide this no follow policy?
Yeah, I mean, I would add too, just in context, that there's also no likes,
Yeah.
um, and the no follow was a choice I puzzled over for a while. We're so used to what a social media platform is or what a social network is. The idea of the network is often focused on, well, who do you connect with within the wider platform? But part of the experiment with Minus, from my perspective, is that the the central constraint, the 100 posts for life, the idea that it's a platform that wants less and not more is it's already uh, that constraints being present as part of the design already self-selects. It's already filtering who shows up in the first place. A lot of people look at that constraint and they're like, well, that's not interesting to me. I want to be able to post 100 times a day. Um, Certainly on Twitter, we see a lot of that, right? I mean, I post a lot on Twitter too, sometimes. So I wanted to see what would happen. Like, could we have a feed that was made up of individuals that are from all over, that aren't people that I have personally chosen to be in connection with, that was still manageable, readable, would have some kind of a community feel? And so far, I feel like it mostly does, even though we've had big influxes of users based on some, uh, publicity in various places. And so there's been kind of a rush of users at different moments in the last month. But so far, I think there is more of a community feel. It feels a bit different. And I would also say on the follower, like the choice to not have followers, it was that the moment that you've got followers, now you've got, it's so hard for us to avoid wanting to count the followers and make comparisons with other people based on how many followers I have. And there's this intrinsic thing that's, uh, I mean, the design of a typical social media platform is playing on our need for self-esteem and using the visibility of like metrics and follower metrics and friend metrics and share counts and all these things to animate that need for self-esteem that comes, that's totally built into us through evolution. And so by getting rid of followers, I just get rid of the need to count them and the need to even be able to look at a list of them. And instead it the idea is that perhaps it creates more of a sense of we're all in this together, I guess. We can't exclude very easily. I mean, you can block people, that's there, but everything else is present on the feed.
And it's interesting that you cannot be either a follower or an influencer, that because that's usually the choice you have. And I mean, some people don't want to be either. I mean, who wants to be a follower in life? But I don't know. Yeah. And about metrics, you said that one of your ideas was not to have any metrics. So there aren't any metrics on the platform. And that's a little bit unsettling at first because we're so used to that. But was it an attempt to dissociate engagement from performance?
Yeah, so for me, this question and kind of what the role of visible metrics are in social media goes back 10 years. I've been when I first wrote a browser extension called Facebook Demetricator to hide all of the metrics across Facebook, and subsequently have done it for Twitter and Instagram, and of course recently Instagram has experimented some with it themselves, after coming after me uh, for my efforts to do so, I should note. Facebook too, but the so I've got 10 years of research. I've written research papers about the effects of visible metrics. I've received feedback over almost 10 years from users of these extensions about what happens and how different these platforms like Facebook and Twitter feel when the numbers are hidden. And what I can say um, with a lot of listening behind me on this topic is that the presence of like metrics, of follower metrics, etc., have dramatic effects on how we feel and what we do, how we think about what we should be doing within these platforms. The presence of the numbers teach us what to post and what not to post. They make us more competitive with everyone, with our friends. They make us feel more compulsive, like we have to keep checking to see, do we have any new notifications? Do we have any new friend requests? Do we have any new likes? They become the way through which we evaluate what we see. The presence of the numbers on the feed, for example, turn us into number scanners first. When we scan that feed, we have been conditioned to watch the numbers as a guide for what to stop at and pay attention to. When someone follows us and we go to see who that person is, we've learned to use how many followers they have and how that number compares to our follower count as a guide for whether or not we might follow them back. Absent in all of what I just described is reading the bio of the person who followed us, looking and reading the posts that they've put up before, or reading the posts on the feed. And so by removing the metrics in all these demetricator projects, but then also in Minus, my intention is to put the focus back on the content, on the who and the what, rather than the how many and the how much. And I will say that in Minus, there is one metric visible, right? So there's no like counts, there's no follow counts, there's no notification counts, but there is one number, and it's this post remaining count, and it's the only visible metric, and it's a metric that can only go down. As you post, that number goes down. Eventually, you get to 0. That's it. You're out.
One funny feature, I think, is also the fact that posted are not dated, that every post reads posted recently. So I think that is funny, but if you dig a little deeper, it could lead us to a very profound discussion on time and the perception of time, which is a fascinating topic in general, but it's very relevant when it comes to social media. I was wondering, what's your perception of time spent on your social media?
Yeah, I mean that choice is one that I've also done with the demetricator projects to demetricate age metrics. And so the way that most pieces of content are presented on feeds within Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, etc., eventually, if it's old enough, it might just have a timestamp on it. But if it's any time in the last 2-3 days or whatever, usually it is an age metric. It's counting how old that piece of content is. At first, it might be 3 seconds old, and then it's 12 seconds old, and then it's 24 seconds old, etc. Eventually, it gets to 1 minute, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And I don't know about you, but for me, whether my friend ate her banana 12 seconds ago or 23 seconds ago, these are distinctions that don't mean anything to me. But the design of the interface suggests I should care, because they're delineating a difference between those two. And what it does, I mean, from my perspective, what this does, and certainly from the feedback I've gotten, is it teaches users that now is the only time that really matters, and that the moment the now becomes 1 second ago, it's already becoming old news. And the effect of that is to compel us to keep paying attention, because a new now is occurring every second, and you don't want to miss it. And you don't want to be the person to respond to it when it was an hour old or 2 hours old. You want to be on it when it's 12 seconds old, right? So, so what times, when you go to Minus, every post has a vague descriptor. And for anything within a certain period of time, I think it's a couple of days, it says recently. As soon as it gets older than a couple of days, I think that's the time. It says a while ago. So those are your two options, recently or a while ago. And I think that's enough. I mean, the feed is already chronologically ordered, or reverse chronologically ordered. So there's no algorithm in the middle deciding this one goes at the top and we're going to change the order. So you know that the one down here is older than the one up here. And they're all recent. And part of it is I don't want people to feel like they've got to come back right away, or they got to, there should be nothing stopping you from forgetting about the social network for a little bit of time or a lot of time, or just never come back is okay too. But you think of it tomorrow, stop back and see what's there. Like, I don't want people to, by design, I don't want them to be compelled because of the timestamps to always be checking.
Can you tell us a little bit about the interface design? Because it's just a single feed and a very sober white and gray. Why did you choose that?
Well, part of that is in response to the design creep of the big tech social media platforms over time. I mean, Facebook has pretty much always been a noisy interface for going back to 2007 or 2008 or so, um, but they've all gotten just crazier, and they've turned into, Facebook isn't just a news feed. It's also Messenger. It's also Marketplace. It's also games. It's also videos. It's also, yeah, it just goes on. I mean, sometimes I'm kind of amazed because I don't always go dig in every page, but when I do my work, I have to go look all over. And I'm like, there's a whole other product I didn't even know existed built into Facebook. If you look at the Facebook interface, it's become so dense and crazy, and Twitter too, frankly. It's not as bad as Facebook, but there's still a lot of noise all over the place. Now they've just added spaces. They just got rid of fleets. Everything's adding stories. I mean, in a sense, all of the social media companies copy each other and add the other company's product to their own. So, Instagram copies Snapchat, and then Facebook takes from Instagram, and then Twitter takes from them too. I mean, they just all keep copying each other. Twitter just basically copied Clubhouse, the new beta kind of audio space. So with Minus, I really wanted to toss out almost everything, make it as simplified as possible. The feed, it's just a single column, as you said. It's a narrow column by design. Even if you make your browser huge, it's only about 500 pixels wide. It's good for reading text. There are no images. You can't even post an image or a photo. You can post links, you can post emoji, and you can post text and combinations of those, but no images, except for your avatar, your profile image. There's no infinite scroll. You scroll to the bottom, you have to click the button to get the next bunch. So you have to make a choice every 20 or so posts. Do I want to keep doing this? The Up at the top, there's a bell for notifications, but that bell will never light up, and it will never give you a number. It's, if you want to go see if there are notifications, click on the bell, and you will see them. If you don't click on the bell. And that's basically it. There's no messages built in. There's no marketplace or anything else. It's just a feed, posts. You can go to your own profile page and just see your history.
So now let's talk about the language, because since there are no visual distraction, it's really all about the language. And I really like that. And I think it's really fascinating because it says a lot about people. I think from what they post, we can learn a lot about their personalities and about their culture too. I've noticed recently that some people start posting in their mother tongue without translating. And I think that's really awesome. And it's really unique. I have not seen that much on any other platforms. I think it's probably, I don't know, a sign that people feel comfortable or sharing like who they are. So was this topic of language any of your interest in the first place?
Yeah. First of all, I do agree with you. Like, I've enjoyed seeing users come on, and so it was just in a Japanese publication recently, and as a result, a bunch of new users from Japan showed up, and a number of them started just posting in Japanese. And part of what I noticed is that my reaction to that was to translate the Japanese. Like, I just pasted into Google
Yeah,
Translate
me too.
to see what they'd said, and then when I felt like I wanted to respond, I typed something into Google Translate and translated it back, and then pasted the Japanese in. And it seems like, at least with one of them, I'm not even sure they necessarily, maybe they think I speak terrible Japanese. Like, I don't, because
Well,
Google
you
Translate
try.
is never going to be very good. But at least it was functional. They responded as if I had written Japanese, and I do enjoy that. The focus on language for me, honestly, I mean, there's multiple reasons why I've made that decision. One of them is about kind of the role of the image in social media today, and how the image has been used extensively, especially in the last several years, with the rise of viral disinformation, kind of targeted disinformation, micro targeting of disinformation. The image is often used to exceed any other built-in language constraints. So it's to bypass tracking of blocked speech, for example, or to make particular kinds of words much bigger than they could be otherwise. And so, and there's been a lot of good research done on this in analyses of the ad targeting that happened on Facebook for the 2016 US presidential election, for example, and looking at the way that images were used to inflame, to polarize, to really create situations where people are fighting in order to just get them whipped up into action. So that was one reason I thought about removing the images. And I have another extension I did a few years ago called Textbook, which is Facebook without the images, where I tested that out a while back. And this is kind of an extension of that. But it's also, for me, it's an interest in a return to text. I mean, I'm an artist. I make a lot of image-based work. I make video work. I make image-based work in addition to software. And it's not that I'm not excited about and interested in images. It's more that without metrics, without feed algorithms, and without images and videos, it creates, in my idea, an environment where it's more conducive to the reading and consideration of text that might be left. And if I think back to the earliest days of Facebook, I first got on Facebook in 2007. I remember when the status box said, Ben is ... and you had to fill in the rest, like having a sandwich today or whatever it was. And in other words, there weren't any images on the feed back then. And the addition of images was not just because images are great and communicative and interesting, but they were also to provide yet another way to encourage you to do more. And I purposefully want this network to not feel like it's ever trying to induce your engagement. So that was the choice. It's it's a radical, right? I mean, it wouldn't necessarily think it would be radical, but it is radical in 2021 to have a social network that just says no image, no text, no audio, no video. I mean, I'm sorry, no audio, no video, no image. Obviously, it has text. But it's a way of seeing, well, what happens when there just isn't all this other noise? Like, can we have a conversation? What happens when that's all there is?
Yeah, some people say it reminds them of the early years of the internet. We see that a lot. I'm wondering about moderation, because moderation is a big issue on social media platforms. So I
Yeah.
have not seen any precise guidelines or any code of conduct of some sort on minors. Is there one?
So yeah, I mean, if you've read the terms of service, you've seen all there is in terms of what's published. My intention here is to see how long I can hold off without having to have a ton of rules around this
Yeah.
topic. Um, and partially that's an interest in seeing whether or not the central design constraints might be self-moderating in a way. Because a lot of the reason that you get trolls and hate speech and um, sexism and racism and just proliferating on a site like Facebook is because the site's already trained all of us to value and desire in ever increasing metrics, and polarizing speech is about as good as about as efficient as it gets at producing metrics. Um, the angrier it makes someone, the more there's going to be conversation around it, and some people are really going to like it, and then some people are going to share it or retweet it but not like it. It's all producing metrics. It's all producing numbers that go up. So the, partially, my hope here is that it doesn't give the people who want to post that kind of content what they're looking for. The thing that makes it satisfying to post that information in the first place. I will say that so far, I'm really happy with how successful it's been in that category. There have been a few incidents of people coming on and posting some kind of hate speech. But two things have happened. One is it's not so fast that many people saw it in the first place because people aren't on it all the time. And two, nobody responded. Every time I found, like I think it's 3 times I've found this, there were no replies. Um, so, and the person didn't come back. So I just took him down, like it's,
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm not going to leave hate speech on the platform, but the that's how it's worked so far. Will it continue to work that way? I don't know. Will it have to have a code of conduct, more explicit rules, some kind of better moderation? I don't
Because
know.
there is no flag button or report button
Um, there
either.
there could be. There isn't one there now, but obviously that would be, like asking the community to kind of. There is a block, so you
Okay.
could just block someone if they were posting somebody, and then they just disappear from your feed, and you don't see, just like any other platform. There, we could do a report button, and that would allow the community to kind of take on some of that role. But the report gets a little, at least if there's any automation, it gets a little more complicated because
It does.
it allows,
How do you define problematic content? Yeah.
right. Yeah, and it allows people to suppress speech they don't like as opposed to report speech that has no place.
So have you been personally triggered by a post?
Yeah, I have. I mean, certainly some of the hate speech that has shown up. These three
Yeah, but
incidents.
apart from that.
Oh, personally triggered. Um, I mean, nothing terribly. No, I've had some moments where so the minus got posted on a site called Hacker News a couple of weeks ago, and Hacker News is like Silicon Valley's Reddit. It's my best description of it. It comes out of the Y Combinator venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. It's very well known, and it's like where all the developers, the people who write Silicon Valley software, hang out. And it got posted on there, and it sat at number 1 for about a day, and so we had a huge influx of users coming from there, and some percentage of them felt like the best thing they could do was to come on and just complain about all the terrible decisions they saw. And I'm used to this. I make things that Silicon Valley doesn't like all the time, but I've always been on the opposite side of this equation where they make the platform and I make the things that critique it, and I write the critiques or I write the software that critiques, and here I made the platform and they all came on, and
Yeah, well, that's only fair.
yeah, it's fair. But because of the design of the system, and there not even being an algorithm, so the top post not necessarily being a popular post, just being the most recent post, it meant that there could be a good hour where some scathing critique was the first thing everybody saw when they logged in. Um, that's how it's designed. So, it's part of the experiment. But you asked, and that's my answer.
Um, so is it close to whatever you expected when you created the platform, what you're experiencing now?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, in some ways it is. I mean, certainly in the I guess I could say it's close to some of my hopes that like some of the things we've talked about. I, I will say honestly, in some ways there's what I would describe almost as an earnestness and a community feel that I've seen in some of the posts and some of the replies that I didn't necessarily expect would emerge that quickly. Or or that maybe it would be there at the beginning when it was really small and mostly people I know, but then once it kind of like just started being whoever, people I didn't know and who didn't necessarily think about this as a part of an art exhibition, that it would maybe it would lose that feel really quickly. And that part's been a bit surprising. Like I've been interested to see that feel emerge. I will also say that I feel like it's still pretty early. It's like there's an arc to the last month. It's been up for just a little over a month in terms of um, available to the public. And, we'll see where it's at in 2 months. That'll be as long, twice as long as now. And a lot can happen in a month or in doubling the amount of time. So, so far, some yes, some no. And then let's see in a month and go from there, I guess.
Did you plan how long this is gonna last, or this is something that you don't want to share? Because I know you kind of keep a little mystery around the whole platform. So if this is part of it, you don't have to answer that.
Yeah, no. I mean, I don't mind answering questions. I definitely have felt a reluctance to talk too much on the feed itself because I don't want to I have a bit of a sense of not wanting to influence the conversation too much. Um, I could I could use the feed all day to just ask people questions about social media, and it would be really fun for me. And maybe I will do that eventually. But right now, I kind of want to see what emerges without me pushing. Um, but in terms of how long, honestly, as long as I can, as long as it can. I'm I'm a single individual. This is not my only thing. Um, it's not built like like big social networks. I'm not an engineering team. I'm not a $1 trillion corporation. I'm an art
Yeah.
professor, artist, right? So um I'll keep it up as long as I can, and I hope that's a very long time.
Yeah.
Uh, but we'll see, and it's also a little bit up to the people who are there and who want to be there. Do they keep coming back? Is there any reason to keep it fresh, or is it just kind of, because I think the moment that, like, if people stop participating or they kind of maybe just decide, well, they forget about it, and so they come back maybe a year later or something just to see what's there. That's the moment at which there's the chances of it kind of just becoming like filled with spam or something probably go up. But I will say that, and so maybe I would shut it down if that's kind of where it ends up. But I will say that, like, if it has a rush and it does something for a while, and then people just stop coming, great. Then we'll shut it down. I mean, that's kind of part of the point, is that it doesn't have to just endlessly grow.
But some people, I've seen posts where people say that they wanted to be here for 30 years and post 3 posts a year. So yeah, hang in there.
I know they have, and I think, I mean, to me, that reflects just how viscerally we've come to believe that a, a, a big tech platform is going to be with us our entire lives, and that we should be planning and thinking about our participation on that platform as if it's a permanent part of our landscape. And like, that's what, like, when I say, like, don't presume it's, I mean, I see them post that, and I have said in response to a few of them, like, I don't know how long it's going to be here. And other people have said that too to them. They've said, hey, like, this may not be, it's an art project. It may not be here forever.
Yeah.
Uh, but that's okay. I mean, it kind of reveals this piece that I suspect you've probably noticed too, which is there's a reluctance to post. Like, part of
Yes.
what's coming of the limit on 100 posts, the 100 posts for life constraint, for a lot of users, is they feel more pressure, more weight. They feel like, I should make this post count. And I
Yeah.
think part of what's interesting about that is it just shows how little we have that feeling when there's infinite posts available. If I can post 1,000 posts every day, then does anything have to count? Like, does it anything need to be
Yeah, but
considered?
it's interesting because it's not like this is the only place we can express ourselves.
Right.
But yet there is that pressure.
Yeah. And
So
it's,
that's fascinating. Yeah. And
yeah,
some people do not feel the pressure because some people just burn the whole 100 posts and have fun. And that's great too. I mean, this is where I think personality shows. So that's very cool. So I think this is going to be my last question because time is passing by very quickly. If you were to give a name to the users of Minus, what would that be? Like, there are YouTubers and Instagrammers. So
boy, I haven't given, that's a great question. And I haven't given it any thought. Um, so I'm reluctant to just throw a name out there, but I'd be happy to think about it. I guess I will say that there's usually, I mean, if you went onto Twitter and said, go to this link, here's a new social network, a number of people will click the link and sign up just to see what it is. There's a certain number of people who feel like, I want to see what the thing is. Different motivations. Some people are interested in the topic. Some people figure, what if it becomes viral? I want to get my username locked in. I mean, it's like a lot of motivations behind that. But the people who come back a second time, that's the people I'd be asking, like myself, well, how to answer your question about. And I think whatever the word is, um, minus, it doesn't lend itself well to some form like YouTuber or TikToker or um, Facebooker or whatever. But minuser, lesser, I don't know. It takes the constraint of the system and applies it to the user in a way that I don't think works. But I do think that the group as a whole are people who are, it seems like, are people who are willing to try something radically different. And yet they don't seem to be coming from, they seem to be coming from all over. Like, some people want to just talk about playing computer games or croquet, or some people are like writing poetry, and some people are like playing, just like, how can they kind of break things a little bit but not terribly. It's like there's a lot of different approaches to the system, people with different backgrounds, and that's interesting to me, I guess, to see how that plays out.
you think about it.
I'll think about it. Yeah. You
Okay.
should start. You should make a post and ask the question,
Okay,
and
maybe I will.
see what people think. I mean, maybe it should come from the group and not from me.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Ben, for your time. It was a pleasure. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching. I will add some comments, a link to your work in the comments, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
So thank you, everybody, and à bientôt.